situation where they have to share any of the land that exists between the Cape Town and Cairo with any other colonial power. This is why they took over all of Tanzania, which was a German territory. They took over everything that was Sudan, and they decided that they will tell the French to take West Africa, which really had not a lot at the time. But greedy as they are, they saw the Boya Mountain, and they didn't want to let go of that range of mountains. It's a unique geographical feature on the West Coast. There's no other place like Ambazonia in West Africa. And so they told the French, we'll give you the larger part, take the larger part, but we'll keep this mountain range. And don't forget, France had been overrun by the Germans. And so France at the time didn't have much power of negotiating. And they gave in to the British taking all of East Africa and giving them just a bit of the German West Africa. Now, the British did not establish a separate administration for Southern Cameroons. They ruled Southern Cameroons as part of Nigeria. So you see, many of our people were going to Lagos as representatives of the federal government of Nigeria. In fact, some of you may not know, but Dr. Estimuna was minister, both a federal minister in Nigeria and Eastern Nigerian government minister before becoming a Southern Cameroon's minister. But in 1951, the Eastern Nigerians, with the support of Azikiwe, decided to create a separate state or region. And his NCNC, which was a National Council for Nigeria and Cameroon, succeeded in establishing the Eastern Nigerian House of Assembly. And our people joined. Our representatives who used to go to Lagos joined that group. But Dr. Endele was elected in 1951 and appointed a minister without portfolio, and then 2 years later was made Minister of Labor. But I think his group realized that this was just, window dressing, because Southern Cameroon was not taking most of the decisions that were being taken in the Regional House of Assembly in Enugu. So in 1953, he joined Mr. Foncha and Mr. Muna to break away from the NCNC and form the KNC, which advocated autonomy for Southern Cameroon. They said if East Nigeria can have autonomy, we should have autonomy. And in 1954, Southern Cameroon was established as a federal territory with its own House of Assembly and an executive council. And Dr. Endele became Prime Minister. together, working very closely with Dr. Foncha
Wow.
and Mr. Muna and many others. But it turned out that soon after, Dr. Indra changed his political views and he advocated for greater integration with Nigeria, something that
Mm.
shocked both Foncha and Endele, because he said, we just fought to get out and you're recommending that we go back. So Dr. Endele got another party, KPP, which was also pro-Nigeria, and they formed KNC, while Dr. Fonja and Mr. Muna went ahead together with late President, Prime Minister Ngomjoa to set up KNDP. But in 1957, Dr. Endele was able to squeeze a victory and stayed as Prime Minister of Southern Cameroon, and was installed in 1958 as Prime Minister of West Cameroon. But the following year, Mr. Foncha won the elections and replaced Dr. Endele in 1959. That replacement was actually in January 1958. But in 1959, the discussions began about what happens to the call for independence, which every African country is supposed to get. And Dr. Endele unfortunately opted to support the integration of Southern Cameroon with Nigeria. I say unfortunately because we were, as a people, being tormented a lot by the Nigerian immigrant population, led mostly by Igbo traders. They harassed people everywhere. And the Yorubas, who were top of the civil service, also made sure that our people didn't occupy most of the key jobs. And they succeeded in making sure that there was not even a secondary school, a government secondary school in Cameroon. You had to go to eastern Nigeria. And therefore, it was thanks to the actions of missionaries that Sase College was established in 1939, even before we moved into a separate state. They are the ones who saw that we are independent people, we should have our own schools, we should have our own hospitals, and so on. So if you're asking what happened to us before 1960, these are the key elements. The main reason is that having pulled out of the Eastern House of Nigeria to establish a fully fledged autonomous region of Nigeria, unfortunately, our Prime Minister decided to change his mind and advocate for integration with Nigeria. A lot of the problems we have today emanate from that change of mind. One may ask why this happened, but I think, unfortunately, neither Dr. Endele nor Dr. Funchal left behind any memoirs that will educate us on why this happened. But what we know from records, and there is a Cameroonian who's done an excellent job, Carlson Anyangwe, in analyzing the secrets of the aborted decolonization, which bring out a lot of these conspiracies against Southern Cameroons. While Southern Cameroon was an autonomous part of the Federation of Nigeria and Cameroon, it paid every year 100,000 pounds, UK pounds, to the Queen. And it paid another 50,000 pounds to support the colonial government that was managing North Cameroon, which today is part of Nigeria. So there's a lot of bitterness if you are an Ambazonian, that should motivate you to break away from where we are, because the British were really there with us.
Wow.
For example, they
Thank you.
had all the records of all the trade that was going on between Southern Cameroons and the rest of the world. They had all the records. And they knew how much money Southern Cameroons was making every year. Yet, when they discussed independence, they got some fake professor to come and pretend that we are not economically solvent. They hit all those annual trade records. So this is,
ladies and gentlemen,
a summary of what, I don't know if I answered your question, but
yes, you have really done it.
these
Thank
are
you
key
very much,
elements we
Pa.
should all understand.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Ambazonians, I hope you are listening. Pa says that history is for everybody to know. Historians are just to put the pieces together and make it very simple and easy for you to carry home. If you have listened to him very well, you will realize that this attack and oppression of the people of Ambazonia did not start yesterday. It started when the colonial masters came in. And when Germany was kicked out and Britain saw the mountains of Boya, they decided to get it, and left the French with the larger part of East Cameroon because they were interested. And when we started working with Nigeria that they had colonized and they had gotten, our products were paying off the Queen 100,000 pounds each year and an additional 50,000 pounds to the governors that were governing the British part of Africa at that time. That was much money. There was a conspiracy that actually, on the day of our independence, blew some lives. I want to say here very emphatically that God, who created us, Him alone knows why it happened all that time till today, that we are scratching from one little piece to another to put a history together. We are also told by our statesman right here in the studios, in 1951, they started this abracata. What I mean is that all this discrimination and so on. And it became so terrible that he mentioned the business people of Eastern Nigeria, mainly the Igbos, who were traumatizing us. And he also mentioned the intelligentials of Nigeria at that time, the Yoruba people, who were also oppressing us. So you see that in every corner, we were being oppressed. And while the people were getting ready to get their independence, these criminals were still trying to force us a balloon to go and stay underwater. And of course, I read an article which was a summary of the 1994 all Anglophones, they call it, conference, giving an ultimatum to France, sorry, to La Republic of Cameroon, of course, that they were going to go independent if the problems that they were suggesting were not handled. And I'm so shocked that today, some of these people who were the advocates and the registrars and the historians of that time who were making the civics and the current events in Ambazonia could go so low and silent about what we have risen up today to follow up. We want to thank God that there is a species of people that you cannot kill, and they are Ambazonians. Now, I jumping here and there to let you know that if you know where you are coming from and you know your history, you will not keep quiet, especially in this age of enlightenment. You will do everything to make sure that you don't only avenge, but you take back your land, because vengeance belongs to God, whom we have trusted. If we want to go back to plan a revenge of all that has happened from the 1950s right down to today, I'm telling you that the whole La Republic of Cameroon will be cleared off, and France will ask France that the earth should open so that all of them should be swallowed because of the wickedness they have done to us. And as for the Queen, well, their criminal records are following them, because as we hear past saying, our anthem in West Cameroon was God save the king, the Queen. And this is the same Queen that our prayer was asking that she should be saved, but he had a padlock, locked us from outside, and had told us to open the door. And we're dragging and pulling, and while the door was locked outside, and they had the keys. Well, God's time has come, and God has started doing what he is doing. I am just emphasizing all this to make you to understand a bit of what Pa has just said. And so, yeah, Pa, I see your hand up. You want to say something more?
No, I'm listening. I'm waiting for your next question.
Okay, all right, Pa. So that is a summary of what I gather from what Pa is saying, that the deep-rooted hatred and built-up anger that is in the hearts of Ambazonians will not allow them in this generation to go away. Now, I heard you mention that 1958 was the time that Dr. Endele was installed, and 59. What was the duration of the premiership in Ambazonia? Because we have been thinking that he was elected in 1954 and 1959. Fonchal came in, but then from what you are saying, it appears there are some things in between that we need to actually understand, because this was
No,
actually the
actually,
first. Okay.
yeah, actually, when Dr. Endele took over in 19 54 to lead us out of the Eastern House of Assembly, and therefore become our prime minister.
Okay.
Things went well, and we established the House of Assembly and the Executive Council for Southern
Okay.
Cameroon in Buea. Buea was our capital. But it didn't take him 2 years to change his mind. And therefore, he started advocating for greater integration with Nigeria. And that was what brought the friction between him and Dr. Foncha. And therefore, Dr. Foncha, together with Muna and Joa, decided to set up the KNDP. And it turned out that even then, just like what is happening today in Britain, you see that prime ministers can be changed without elections, or elections in Britain do not necessarily have the duration of tenure that you have in the United States. A simple vote of no confidence in the House of Assembly could change who is prime minister. In 1957, such a vote was taken, but Dr. Endele was able to manage another victory and stayed on as prime minister. But the following year, in January 1958, there was another vote of no confidence, again tied up to this Nigerian Cameroon relationship. And Dr. Endele lost that one. And this is a very something that is hidden or suppressed in the history of what was called West Cameroon later on, or what is today we have brought back to its proper name, Ambazonia, was the actions of one very unique politician from Mamfe by name Bokwe. In that 1957, 58, the British commissioner in Buea and the KNC really pressured him to cross the carpet, to cross the political carpet from KNDP to KNC. And if he had done so, then Dr. Ndele would have continued as prime minister in 1958. They even offered him um, to write off his loan, which he had with, I think, Barclays Bank. And he told them, well, I'm coming. You go ahead, I'm coming. But Mr. Bokwe refused to cross the carpet when he went to the House of Assembly. And therefore, Foncha stayed on as the prime minister to negotiate the independence of Southern Cameroons. But you will not hear anybody mention the name Bokwe in the history of West Cameroon or in the history of Southern Cameroon. But he was a unique person, because if he had crossed the carpet, then there would have been no plebiscite, and we should have been just swallowed up as part of Nigeria.
Wow.
On hindsight, people will ask whether that would have been a healthier situation or not. But it gave us a breathing space again, and that is why you ended up with Resolution 1608, which required the UN to grant UN Trusteeship Council to grant Southern Cameroon its independence. But the British did not give up. First and foremost, many people think now that Southern Cameroon did not prepare itself for that. No, there is a conference, and that took place in Mamfe when the delegation had to go to the UN to negotiate our independence. That conference was a very important conference. Mamfe, unfortunately, has been reduced to some not very important town for Ambazonia, but Mamfe played a major role in defining the parameters of our independence. And that it is that program that the Southern Cameroon government took to the UN. But at the UN, there was a conspiracy between the British and the French. And till tomorrow, I believe that money changed hands between the British and the French. But since the French don't have the system of publishing, declassifying their own international
Dealings.
correspondence, we will never know. We will know when those papers are published by Paris. But they were able to bring in some overzealous university students from both La République and Southern Cameroons. And they came and were saying, no, we don't want this plebiscite. We don't want any independence for Southern Cameroon. We want one Cameroon. And you see that group played very well into the hands of the British and the French. So they were now classified as the intelligentsia that was better, understood better what Southern Cameroon needed than the Southern Cameroon government. And
Were they
therefore,
Southern Cameroonians?
they were,
Okay.
yeah. Some are
There's
very
somebody on
prominent
the
Southern
line.
Cameroonians. Pardon?
There's somebody on the line who wants to contribute something. I don't know if you can allow us get him to say
Yes, sure.
something, then you can continue.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to put our history straight, and even though there may be some people who have not known these details, there are people who are willing to share these details with us. Hello, Pa.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are on
Are you
ABC.
with me? Are you?
You are on ABC now. Go ahead.
Yeah, are you with me? Yeah.
Pa, can you
Hold
lower?
on a bit.
Pa, can you lower your volume, please?
Yeah.
Reduce the volume of your television.
Take on. Hello? Hello?
We are listening.
Yeah. To begin with, Foncha was not in that delegation in Nigeria, in Enugu. Foncha was a headmaster, RCM School Bukwango. It is documented, and I've sent you the documents. You see it there well verbatim. Foncha was not. Foncha came in when Endeli came to Cameroon. He was looking for a secretary. So Muna and Joa brought in Foncha. So Foncha was not in that delegation. That's the first thing. The second thing was Manfe, when these people left Nigeria, Manfe was their headquarters. The Constitutional Conference in London was made up of people from Manfe, from Ambazonia altogether. They left Manfe International Airport and went to London. I have that. I send that to you too. Then the other one too for United Nations. They left for United Nations. Ambazonia were preparing for their independence quite well. That is why they sent two delegations, one to the Queen and one to United Nations. One headed by S.A. George. I have sent you the picture of S.A. George, Jeremiah Chi Kansin, the former moderator of a Presbyterian church. He was a minister by then. They went to United Nations and the rest. And then by 1959, when Endeli failed election, he formed the CPNC, not KPP. KPP was for Mbile and Kale. They formed the party KPP. And during August in Gumjua, PM Kale was the Speaker of the West Cameroon House of Assembly. You have those documents. I've sent you those pictures. If you peruse them, you read them quite well. So Mr. Mann has made some errors because by that time we studied that history in Mr. S.N. Tita, the book publisher at Limbe. He taught us that we bought those books and we read that history together with Barrister and saw who is there in their interim government. CBM School Moriwe 1962. We had those documents and I have other facts here to send to you that I can debunk a lot of those errors which have been made. So Endeli did not go for election twice. He went once. Once he was elected in 1954, his mandate expired in 1958, and in 1959, he could not go again for the election. Foncha came up and won him. That is how it were.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pa. Yeah.
Yes.
I beg your pardon?
Yes, I say those are very little details that are important, but for now, what we are actually trying to get is how this was carried out at that time without anybody, fighting the fight that La Republic has enabled many of our brothers and sisters with their divide and rule to come in and fight. And at that time, things were not recorded the way they are recorded today. So, when we get those things and we correct them, that is fine. Thank you very much. We'll get back to you.
Let me tell you something. In those days, all of them were one. When they were going for campaign, they used Land Rover. Then the Prime Minister and all of them, they entered one Land Rover from Cambe to Limbe, all over.
Okay.
There was no division. There was a total cohesion.
Yeah, that's why I say that. Yeah, that's why I'm saying that they were moving and doing everything to make the people of Ambazonia to stay together until these corrupt people, France came in.
Can I make
Okay.
Can I make a rectification, please?
After the Fumban conference, they came in by 1961 after the Fumban conference, because when the British troops were leaving southern Cameroon, they left through Limbe, they left through Victoria with a ship called HMS, and all the children, the school children, Muliwa and so on, were sent there to greet them.
Okay.
By that time, the National Day.
Can I make a statement here?
Okay.
That's when we got our National Day.
Okay.
The day Southern Cameroon left Nigeria. peacefully. Okay. There was no molestation or so.
Okay, Pa.
Can I make a correction
right.
here?
Yeah.
The representation of Southern Cameroons in Nigeria, either in Lagos or in Enugu, was not a permanent appointment. These people went to Nigeria, they left their jobs and went to Nigeria. And I know that, I know this, I would say firsthand, because I spoke to one of the ladies who was the last batch of Southern Cameroonian girls sent to school in secondary school in Nigeria. Mr. Foncha was on one of those legislative travels to Nigeria from his post as school headmaster. And he read in front page of a Nigerian paper that Southern Cameroon girls were being treated in a secondary school in eastern Nigeria. And he traveled on foot. He traveled on land to eastern Nigeria, met this group of girls, and told them, don't worry, we are currently negotiating to get our own secondary school for girls in Southern Cameroon. And that is the origin of QRC Okoyom. So the parliamentary system at the time was not like now, when once you become a parliamentarian, you don't have to do anything else. No, whether it's Kansen or S.A. George or which of these people, they were doing their jobs and then going to Nigeria when it is legislative session time. So I don't think you contradict what I was saying. In fact, I remember very well, while a kid in Queen Palace, Mr. Endele used to come. His parliamentary representative in my village was Foncha's cousin. That's how transparent Southern Cameroon politics was at the time. It did not hurt anybody. And they traveled together, as he says. But I'm saying that the split came in once and Dr. Endele decided that we need to go back to Nigeria. And it created a lot of problems for some of the Igbo traders who were in Nigeria, because he carried stones from Nigeria to show that they had been stoned in Nigeria. And I knew a Nigerian bookseller in Mancon who narrated the story, how he went to Womb market to sell books, and somebody from Womb came up and gave him 2 spanks and said, how dare you stone Dr. Endele in Nigeria? And he was so confused because he didn't even know that there was anything ongoing. Now, all these years, I had not believed what he said until I read the memoirs of our deceased Kuba traditional leader. I could not believe seeing that word, those were stoned, that he actually said they were stoned in Nigeria. So I think there may be a mixture of narrative between
Yeah,
our last
yeah,
speaker and myself, but
yeah,
the empirical evidence is there for people to see. And I will, now that he has challenged me on that, I will tell him that it is none other than Professor Victor Nomangu who told me he was one of those who went to the UN with students from France, and which I think, if you have read any memoirs from others, they also identify that. And
yeah,
at the
Pa.
time, they didn't know what the implications were going to be.
Yes, Pa. Thank you very much. I think verbal history that was downloaded and read or written by some people who came up to age to try to write it down could have had this mixture. It cannot go very straight, because even if I remember a time when God came in, Jesus came in and gave an assignment to Peter, and he turned around and asked Jesus, "And what would this man do?" Jesus said, "If I wish that he should stay till I come, what is that to you?" The saying went out that Jesus said that John was never going to die, John the beloved, until Jesus came back. So you see, you can hear something and there is a misplacement and misnarrative somewhere. But the truth is that they all mean to say the same thing, which is going to help us to build where we are now. Now, one other person is on the line. He wants to say something also to what we have been saying here. Hello, sir.
Yeah,
You are on ABC.
yeah, my name is Ben. I'm calling from Maryland. Yeah, I just want to chip in something, correction to Pa. When he talked about it, then he mentioned the man who crossed the carpet. It is Frambo, not the Bokwe. Bokwe is from Memendia, but Frambo was from Manfred. It's Frambo who crossed the carpet.
No, he said he did not cross the carpet. The Bokwe is the one who did
Frambo
not
crossed the
cross the
carpet,
carpet.
but not Bokwe.
Okay. I thought he said he was the one who crossed the carpet. Because he said the man was from Manfred. Manfred is Frambo. It's Frambo who crossed the carpet to give victory to the right side.
No, he did not say
Okay.
like that. He was
Okay.
talking of Bokwe, who did not cross the carpet. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's Frambo who crossed the carpet.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, but it was not during the same session.
Okay. All right. That's why I said that there are a number of very little details, and if you don't hear very well, you may take one and put in the place of another one, and that will look like there is confusion and look that there's contradiction and so on. But in any case, that's not what we are aiming at. We want to know if the seniority of which President Sako is holding now had some people in the past that stood the grounds of justice and honesty, as we are seeing in his government. And if there were, what was the situation or the nature of the opposers who were opposing at that time? And we are now discovering that the number of our people were like one. If they could enter one Land Rover and go for campaign, then there was seriousness in what they were about doing. I think our time is running up, and I have just one more question that I'm going to ask Pa. Okay, let me put it this way. Did you ever think that we shall be in this stage of affairs in Ambazonia owing to the corruption that is in the world today? Are you optimistic that the declaration of our nation as the 55th African nation is real? That's the question I want to leave with you, Pa. As you say that, you give your final words. You want me to repeat the question?
No, I've heard.
All right, okay.
There is an expression If wishes were horses, beggars would ride. Amazonians have to understand that our independence is in our hands. And I will remind them of the statement by the late Dag Hammarskjöld, the UN Secretary General, who, if he had not been killed in the Congo, we would not have ended up with this unification nonsense. He said that if you force them into unification with La République de Cameroon, this is like pushing a balloon under water, and it will always come up. We have come up. They question whether Amazonia becomes what it used to be in the 1950s and 1960s lies in the hands of Amazonians. The question is whether we are going to build a nation of systems and institutions or a nation of hero worship as exists in La République now. As a student in caste, Prime Minister Ngomjwa used to come with his ministers on holidays or on tour, and he would he met us not in a conference hall, but in our dining room at lunchtime. And he sat on any table. No student was cleared from his table for the Prime Minister to sit. But he delivered strong messages that we must understand that we have to work much harder than they had done in order to pull Southern Cameroons out of poverty into modernity. He said, if we cannot do it faster than them, then we have failed. These were the words of somebody who had a vision and a dream. So I'm asking all Amazonians, do you have a vision? If you have a vision, that question about whether we'll be the 55th state in Africa will not even come up. You have to push yourself up to the table. Having said that, we have to know what the obstacles are. At the moment, the AU is not what Nkrumah and Secretary and NASA dreamt about. They dreamt about an organization of African unity that was going to bring independent African countries together. But over the years, we've realized that at least 14 of those countries are not independent. And they have been the spoilers all along. I worked in Ethiopia for 10 years for the UN. During that time, I interacted with many OAU people. Most of the countries didn't pay their annual dues. And this is why the OAU could not do anything. So I'm telling Ambazonians, if you want to be an independent state, we have to fund that independent state. We have to work towards it. We also have to understand that even the AU, which Gaddafi created virtually single-handedly, I say this because I was based in Ethiopia at the time. It's not the Organization of Independent African States. They even got China to build their headquarters, just as Cameroon has gotten China to build their National Assembly. How can you, as an organization, rely on a foreign power to build your capital? Same thing, some of you must have heard the South African parliamentarian attacking France in the AU. France has virtually bought over the AU by offering to finance their conferences or organizing other nations to do the financing. And it is not only the OAU, it is also the ADB. This was an institution that was set up to mobilize African resources to help finance Africa. And now you have got Europeans and Americans as members of that organization. And they call more shots there. Same thing with ECOWAS. It is France that got the Ghana government, Ghana president to call the meeting and impose sanctions against Mali. So you see, we have to focus on Ambazonia. Once we have our independence, then joining any organization is secondary. That will come naturally. But we have first to demonstrate that Ambazonia is ours. If we cannot demonstrate that Ambazonia is ours, then anybody can own it. Any absentee landlord can own it. Corruption or no corruption. And why do we have corruption? In my talk the last time, I explained how the Southern Cameroon government had institutions that enabled it to combat any misappropriation, any mismanagement of public funds. Those institutions worked, and they worked effectively. It had institutions that prevented individuals from picking their relatives and putting them in government offices. Those generally worked. I'm sure some of you are the children of people who were either administrators or chief clerks in government offices. If you search their records, you may find a copy of the general orders. If not, our colleagues in Buya, those who are in Buya should look through the archives and you'll find the Southern Cameroon's general orders. Even though the British established a constitution for Southern Cameroon, which gave a lot of the powers to the colonial administrator, but it was a constitution. And there were procedures for it. We had a flag, we had a coat of arms, and we had the currency, the West African pound sterling. Just think of where we are today. And you don't have to ask the question whether we can stamp out corruption. We can stamp out corruption with proper procedures, good accounting systems, and ethics. Ethics in every walk of life, whether you are a driver or a teacher or a doctor or a nurse, your profession should operate on ethical values. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pa. I think that you have answered very, very elaborately. Our time is up, and we want to let Ambazonians know the statement Pa has made concerning the last question. We are the ones to start building our land than to hand it over into the hands of spies who will build it and put in their gadgets that they will do everything to debunk and destroy our stability, because they have made methods to make Africans to be slaves. You go and give your assembly where decisions are taken to be built by China or one other European country. They will bury things inside there that you will never know. We're in the world where spying is the top of the hour, and they want to take all your resources and make you to continue to beg, and you die in poverty, while God actually chose you out in Africa to give you the best of what you are supposed to be enjoying. But because of these greedy people, you have sold yourself over to them. So, ladies and gentlemen,
Just one last point.
okay, Pa.
This problem is not an African problem. Years back,
Okay.
the American government built an embassy in Moscow, and then it discovered that the Russian contractor, had planted listening devices. They pulled the whole thing down to the foundation. So it's not something that is out of thin air.
Very good.
And we have
So
to
we can now
understand.
hear
Yes.
what is actually going on. Now, Amazonians, watch out and make sure that you do what is appropriate. Fund your revolution. Fight by yourselves and get your land and establish. Then you'll be going the way of Endele Endele Jongu Foncha, Gumjua, and what we are beginning to experience now. Once again, thank you very much. This was just another tip of the iceberg. I want Pa to promise us that he will be coming back when convenient to continue with some of our questions, so that it will
No,
be that you have
as
talked to the
long as
Ambazonian people.
I will just give me a bit more leeway earlier so that I can organize my timetable to be able to share some views with you. But
All right, okay.
before I leave, I will urge every Bazonian to read Anyangwe's work, because I think it's a compendium of the debacle in which Southern Cameroons was brought through this
Okay.
conspiracy between France and Great Britain.
Okay. So please,
It's
where can people
excellent.
get that compendium?
Oh, you see, you look on the Amazon,
Okay.
and
All
the
right.
title is "The Secrets of an Aborted Decolonization."
Oh, wow. So please, the secret of aborted decolonization.
Yes,
Everybody should go check it up.
Carlson Anyangwe
By
really
Carlson
invested a
Anyangwe.
lot in getting that volume out.
Wow.
And
Well,
that
I
is
don't
a
want to ask you a personal
resource
question.
material for Amazonians.
Okay. I don't
Yes.
want to ask you a personal question where he is now. But
I'm interested in the facts he puts forward,
in the fact
the
he put,
empirical
yeah,
evidence.
because yeah, that is wonderful. I tell people that God loved David so much that he called him a man after my heart. But when
Yes.
David did some very funny and foolish thing, he came out and declared it there clear. And sent a prophet to go and tell David, you are a dead man because you killed somebody and took his wife and so on. David was not as proud and pompous as the first king of Israel, King Saul. But David humbled himself and God forgave him. That is who God is. So we are believing that our brother, whom God has used to put down a lot of things, well, let me stop there. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall come back on the air with power. I shall announce it in my outings before he comes in, when I must have discussed with him. For today, he reigns.
I
And
have
we
another
have his presence.
reference. I have another reference for
Yes,
you
sir.
guys, which you look
Yes.
through Mukete's memoirs.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Memos. Okay. Okay. That onion was what again? I didn't write it down.
The secrets of an aborted decolonization.
Okay. Okay. All right.
It has
Ladies
more
and gentlemen,
empirical
it's today.
evidence. Thank
Okay,
you.
we end up our studies. Our studies, and see you next. God bless you.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, pa.
Okay.